conservative values that you stand for. And that's kind of one of the just big question of what are we going to do with these undocumented students who are graduating from college. There is a solution out there, which is known as the American Dream Act. It's HR 1751, and we'll put them on a path towards legal status. Many people may not know that undocumented students, Texas was the first state to pass an in-state tuition law that allowed undocumented students to go to college. K to 12th grade, we've been investing in these students. Goes back to your point about our economy and the fact that we really need to make sure that we're getting a return on that investment. So I guess kind of the real question is, can you support legislation like the Dream Act that will guarantee us a return on that investment, will guarantee a youth that's already been politically active to be even more so, because now there will be documented employment for some of the conservative advocates.
Right. That's a good question. There are a lot of layers to that question. First of all, I think our party needs to do a better job reaching out to Hispanics. I thought Governor Bush, then President, did a pretty good job, and then we lost the Hispanic. And you're right, we share a lot of the same values, in terms of hard work, in terms of our moral value system. And there's a lot that we can, outreach, I think, to the Hispanic community to bring them, back into the tent. And in terms of the immigration policy, I think we need a policy that makes, I'm against amnesty. I'll just be honest with you. But at the same time, I think we need an immigration policy that makes a lot of sense in terms of, rather than importing a lot of low-skilled workers or jobs or people who come in and now they're dependent on the government for health care and other things, more high-skilled workforce. So we can have a brain trust in the United States. And I think anybody that comes in the country and gets an education, I sponsored a bill that if you get a PhD in this country, you ought to get a green card, because we want to keep you in the United States if you're intelligent, you're a productive member of the workforce. But we need, we're a country of laws as well, but we need an immigration policy that makes more sense, and not one that just allows, mass migration, low-skilled people crossing over illegally, and then, we don't know what to do about it. And I think that's why border security enforcement is important. And then we have to look at the people who are truly here. I mean, I was at the Pickle Center, which is in my district, and I saw these people making microchips, students, and I said, and they're Asian, 90%. What's going to happen to them when they graduate? Well, they have to go back. I said, well, what do you mean? Well, because they can't get an H-1B visa to stay here. And I said, well, that's crazy, because we invest and train and educate them, invest tax dollars in them, and then they go back to our competitor, to China. And Tim, that should resonate with you with Taiwan. And Rosemary here is the county chairwoman of the Travis County Republican Party as well. I don't know if y'all know her, Rosemary Edwards, but I just wanted to acknowledge you here as well, and thanks for being here. But I think those are that's an important issue we need to be looking at. If we're going to grow our party, there are some who say we have to have this litmus test and purge the party and drive everybody out that doesn't think exactly. Well, I have 5 kids. We don't all think alike in our own family, much less our party. And I think the parties should be a bigger tent party, open to other ideas. But our core philosophy is the same. It's conservative, based on limited government, strong national defense, the very things our founding fathers stood for. So, Tim,
on that. No.
You can't talk about Taiwan?
No.
Okay.
We're supposed to be trained. See you in the theaters next month.
That's right.
That's my fun. Along those lines, we have a need to protect the borders for national security and to ensure domestic tranquility.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we allow people to come into the country undocumented that create problems, like some gangs and stuff, drug wars and all that. And that's an issue where we really need to keep our borders secure in that sense. And it is a quandary because what do you do about those who are already here? And, you know, unfortunately, the easy answer is, Joe, just give them amnesty. You know, but I don't feel that personally is the right thing to do. I think we ought to. They need to obey the law to get here. If they're high intellectual people, you know, high intellect, they're going to obey the law. You know, and so I think the people who come into this country legally immigrate. That's what immigration is about, and that's how our country is going.
But we also need to reform our legal immigration policy, because I think, you know, it's I think sometimes too difficult. But Tim's right. You know, I met with President Calderon down in Mexico City with Henry Cuellar. He's my good friend. He's a Democrat from Laredo, but you know, we worked together, and you know, I was impressed with him. He said, you know, my highest priority is security for my nation, and he's got a real problem with these drug cartels. They are at war. There were 6,000 people killed in Mexico last year, more than the Iraq and Afghanistan wars combined. And a lot of people don't realize that. And what, you know, a lot of my constituents, they don't want that bleeding over into the United States, and they're very, you know, for legitimate reasons, very concerned about that. You know, and I am too. Yeah, the drug trafficking trade, it's a very complicated issue. There's a demand for it here. As long as there's a demand, we're going to try to find a way to get the product in the United States. But he was very sincere about his efforts to crack down on the drug cartels. It was a very dangerous element in Mexico. Yes, sir.
What kind of alternative healthcare plan would you advocate?
Well, some of the ideas I talked about that we could, you know, pass tomorrow, and that's portability. You can carry it from job to job without getting disqualified. Purchasing or insurance across state lines, which would force insurance companies to be more competitive. I think there's some good insurance reforms out there. Pre-existing conditions, you can't be disqualified any longer based upon that. Health association plans. So the idea that the reason why the federal government, you know, I've got Blue Cross Blue Shield. A lot of people think I've got some magical congressional health care thing, and I pay $600 a month, and it's Blue Cross Blue Shield, but it's a good premium because there are so many federal employees. Well, if you can translate that to the private sector where people could pool the risk, and we don't allow that today, where they can pool the risk together, the sheer numbers would bring the purchasing power together and drive the price down. We got to control costs. We got to control, you know, healthcare costs. It's a very complicated issue. There's no silver, you know, bullet to it. You know, I think these federally qualified health clinics that we passed my first term in the Congress under Bush were a good idea to provide clinics for people at the poverty level without having to go to the emergency room for their primary care, which is what a lot of them do. And that drives up the cost because they're getting, you know, primary care in the emergency room. But these clinics have been very successful. I think we should have more and more of them. My point is, I think there are targeted pieces of legislation that we can pass in a very rational way rather than this giant, you know, government takeover with a bureaucracy and a federal health care czar and, you know, this public option which will become the only option. And then we got, you know, a Canadian single payer system, which is what Barney Frank said he wanted in the first place. And that's really their goal. I mean, that's really where they want to go.
Yeah,
is to have this socialized medicine. And if you look at the quality of care, my wife's on the board at MD Anderson. I talked to the Texas Medical Center in Houston, and they said, you know, this is going to destroy American medicine as we know it.